Hi everyone, welcome back. Lovely to hear that buzz of energy. Last few people trickling in. So we're going to start off with some inspiration. I would say they are part of our Purpose family in the US, our sister conference. And I am delighted to welcome to the stage Muneer Panjwani. Please join me in welcoming him.
On stage rocking out stir crazy, Coco flow like 1980s. Come lit, still I drop lazy. None of that maybe.
All right. Is this on? Great. Good morning. Oh God, that was terrible. That was terrible. All right, we're gonna try something else. Can I have everybody stand up for a second? Stand up. All right. Take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3. And let it go. Okay. Now I want you to turn to the person next to you, pretend they're your best friend that you haven't seen in a while, and say hello to them. Okay. All right, bring it back. Bring it back. That was fun, right? I saw a lot of hugs. Hugs are great. That's awesome. Now, oh no, I didn't tell you to sit down. Keep standing up. Keep standing up. Come back up. Come back up. Come back up. There's something that happens in a conference, and I run a conference, so I know this really, really well, is that people want to connect, but they're really nervous too. And the way that you connect with people is when you make eye contact. Okay, eye contact is the invitation to connection. So here's what I want you to do. Look across the table or somewhere else. Try to make eye contact with one person and just give them a nod and a smile. That's all. Great, great. All right, before we sit down, we're gonna do a little Blue Jays, okay? So I want you to shake your hand, and as the hand goes up, we're gonna say, go Blue Jays, okay? Ready? Go Blue Jays! Great. Now let's try this one more time. Good morning. Much better, much better. Now that we're best friends, I want to tell you a little story about how I got started in corporate partnerships. So I grew up in Connecticut. I went to school at UMass Amherst. I'm a 4-time college dropout, which made my immigrant parents very proud and very, very happy with me. Then, the 4th time that I dropped out of college, I ended up landing a great job for an anti-racism organization called the National Conference for Community and Justice. Around the same time, I met my first boyfriend, we fell in love, we moved in together. A year and a half into a relationship, he goes, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be in New York. And I said, I'll support you. That's what partners do. We'll be in a long distance relationship. So he moves to New York, I moved to Connecticut. Just 2-3 hours away, not too far. We can make this work. A year goes by, we're making it work. A year down the road, he says, I don't know if this long distance is working for me. So he stays in New York, we break up, and I do what a reasonable person does in this situation. I quit my job and moved to New York to follow him. But I needed a job, right? So I applied to any job that I could, and I interviewed with this organization called DoSomething.org, which is a global youth social change organization. And I was applying for a head of campaigns job, a head of programs job. The CEO met me in the interview and she said, I don't think you're good for this job. And I was like heartbroken immediately. But she said, I think you'll be really good at business development. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is. But if you give me a job, I'll take it. So she said, we're gonna make you an offer. They basically made me an offer a day later, paid me the lowest salary that they could because I had no experience in it. But they said, we'll train you if you want to take this job. And I said, I want to be back together with my boyfriend. Yes, I'll take this job. Of course I will. So I moved to New York, got that job, and within 6 months, I raised $1 million from like 3 or 4 different corporate partners and realized how much I loved it. I loved being at the table with companies, with their resources, with the proper intention to do good, and then teach them how to do it in a way that actually drove business value and social impact. This was back in 2012. This is when cause marketing was about to hit its peak. Brands were just starting to realize that there was something here around purpose marketing. Social media was exploding. So while I'm going to leave this up here, I'll talk more about what Engage for Good is in a little bit, but you can read this as I continue talking. So this is when every single brand was trying to figure out how do we take traditional marketing and turn it into cause marketing. And when social media was exploding, people were starting to find thousands and millions of other people who cared about the cause that they cared about. And they started building communities. And those communities started to have values. And those values and those communities started to have power. And of course, brands wanted to tap into that power. So they studied the data, they ran focus groups, they started transforming traditional marketing into cause marketing. There were lots of shiny campaigns, massive press releases of big donations that were happening. A lot of CEOs were walking around taking the victory lap of doing the right thing, right? This was all great. It was a time when companies and nonprofits came together, but not just to raise money, to make meaning, to prove that business could be a force for good. I left Do Something in 2015, and we had ran probably about 30 or 40 cause marketing campaigns in my role there and raised over $20 million in a very short amount of time. I moved on to the Trevor Project, which is the largest organization for suicide prevention for LGBTQ young people. This was in 2018. So this is when its peak. Every single company was doing some sort of a campaign. Within 5 years, we built 250 partnerships, brand partnerships, with every single company they could think about. And we raised $135 million. At one time, in one of the Pride parades in New York City, every other float that was floating by in the march was supporting the Trevor Project. This is how big it got. It was so saturated in the market that if you were not doing something good as a brand, you were missing out. But then, of course, the culture changed, right? Budgets tightened, politics started pushing back. The same words that inspired the boardrooms to do something about the world, like equity, sustainability, purpose, it started making them nervous. And partnership that once felt really bold and courageous led to feeling cautious. So here's my truth. I think the golden era of big press releases, big investments, a lot of marketing, that era of corporate partnerships is over. But I do think that era mattered. It mattered a lot because it brought visibility, it brought billions of dollars to causes that needed them. It built a shared language between nonprofit and corporations that had never existed before, the language that we speak today. But it also missed something. It made philanthropy the primary currency of partnership, and it made marketing its main proof of impact. It was largely an era of campaigns. It was not an era of systems. It was an era of brand lift, but not power shift. But endings are not always tragedies. Sometimes they're actually openings and beginnings of something amazing. So I have an unpopular opinion, which is that what we're going through as a sector in the US right now needed to happen. It was necessary. Because in this moment of reflection and reinvention, we're building systems and ways of working that's going to enable this sector to survive and thrive for a long time. So what I call this is a market correction for social impact. Just like a stock market, market corrections adjust inflated prices back to their true value. The market correction social impact is bringing purpose work back to reality. It's forcing companies to back up lofty claims with real performance. And after years of overvalued purpose hype, which was impactful, let me not discredit the work that happened, the field is now starting to normalize around authentic, measurable, and sustainable impact that delivers real returns for both business and society. For years, we saw visibility as the main virtue. That if your brand stood next to a cause, that was enough. The halo effect that you got was all that we needed. But now, every stakeholder, from employees to investors to consumers to the government to journalists, they're all asking much tougher questions. Did you move the needle or just move hearts? Did you change behavior or just buy awareness? Did you invest in systems or just stories? And many companies under pressure are retreating instead of reinventing. But I think this is not a time to retreat. It is a time for reinvention. We're entering the next era of corporate partnerships. And what happens in a market correction is that the sector shrinks a little bit, it gets better at what it does really, really well, and then there's a massive rebound that happens. And I know for a fact that there will be a rebound. our movement will continue. The momentum will shift. The pendulum will swing. And when that happens, I want us to be ready to capitalize on that and grow so fast that purpose becomes the core strategy for business. I believe corrections don't end movements. I believe that they refine them. So the way that I'm starting to think about this is that we need to build a new economy. And I'm calling it the partnership economy. It's not built on charity or compliance, but it's built on shared value, shared ownership, and shared power. It's not a slogan, it's a reordering of how value moves between business and society. So this is what it kind of looks like. When in the old model, the currency was money and PR, in the new model, it's knowledge that's gathered, the culture that's shifted, and the capital that's created. In the old model, corporations led, right? They had the resources, they came to the table, they identified the problem, and then they funded the nonprofits. In the new model, it has to be co-owned. In the old model, it was reputation. That was a big driver of incentive to do good. In the new model, it's relevance. In the old model, it was about annual campaigns. We do a 6-week, 8-week, 12-week campaign every single year at the same time, and then it's done. In the new model, we're looking at brands and nonprofits building a multi-year infrastructure that changes systems. In the old model, awareness was a key metric of success. In the new model, it's resilience. How do we survive as a sector? If a brand cares about an issue, how can it stay relevant when the politics change, when the culture changes, when the consumer shifts their values? So I'm gonna get a little nerdy, so go with me here, okay? So I think there's a tri-capital model here we need to start thinking about. It's called, well, it includes economic capital, culture capital, and knowledge capital. So economic capital is a tangible market value that's created by solving social problems. It's the revenue that's generated, right, for the company as well as for the nonprofit. It's innovation that comes out of really bold thinking to solve old and big problems. It's efficiency. How do we do this better and better every single year? How do we iterate on the work every single year? This is the economic capital that we want to see in every partnership. Second is cultural capital. How are we building trust with all the stakeholders as partners? Consumers, to investors, to the communities, to the nonprofit leadership, to the program leaders, right, and the brand leaders, and the C-suite. How do we change the narrative of how we talk about certain issues in our culture? How do we change behaviors of how people act on those issues? That is the cultural capital we're talking about. And the last one is knowledge capital. The shared data, insights, intellectual property that scales solutions beyond a single partnership. And that can only happen when both partners see each other as assets and with equal value in that partnership. And I think when partnerships generate all three, they create compounding returns. So this is not just about giving back and doing good. This is about building a stronger system forward. So I know this was a little nerdy. You're like, what does this look like in real life? Tell me a little more. So I'm going to give you some examples. So there are 5 rules that I think we should be thinking about. These are very simple rules. I'm not saying these are not new. I didn't make these up. But I'm trying to distill what's been happening in our sector into some best practices that I want to see more of. So rule number 1, we have to stop optimizing for reputation and start optimizing for relevance. Reputation looks backward. Reputation is fickle, is time-bound, but relevance shapes the future. The question isn't how good do we look, it's how dispensable are we to solve for what's next. We run one of the biggest awards programs for corporate nonprofit partnerships in the US called the Halo Awards. So I'm going to give you 5 examples as I talk about these rules for what this looks like in real life. So Edward Jones and Alzheimer's Association have had a 10-year partnership built on a shared purpose: financial health and brain health. They've raised over $54 million, engaged 126,000 employees, reached tens of thousands of families with their work. That's not just philanthropy, that's alignment. Their business practices is embedded into Alzheimer's Association's work. It's proof that when purpose is embedded, relevance becomes inevitable. Edward Jones can't walk away from this partnership easily because it's so deeply rooted in their culture, in their employees, in their decision-making. Rule number 2, we have to stop funding problems and start owning solutions. Nav talked about this really well this morning. In the old world, companies paid nonprofits to fix the problems in society that their consumers cared about, right? If their consumers care about climate change, sure, let's go fund a nonprofit that's doing that work, and then we can wash our hands clean. That's it, right? We're just funding it. But what does it look like to start owning solutions? In the new world, it's expected that we co-invest in the solutions themselves. So here's an example of Athletic Brewing Company, which is a B Corp. They launched a campaign called Two for the Trails. They didn't outsource their impact. They didn't just say, here's some money, give it away. They built it into their business. They created an in-house grant system that funds trail restoration, accessibility, and fire relief across 40 states and 4 provinces. Every single department in that company participates in who gets the money, how they distribute it, which communities that they care about. And there's a whole system that they built out internally. They spent a lot of resources on it to own the solution. They have hundreds of nonprofit partners, but they're not doing this alone. They didn't just donate to the cause, they became the cause, and the cause became them. Rule number 3, which is we have to stop selling impact and start building infrastructure. Impact cannot just be a campaign. Sometimes that's okay, but for our sector to be resilient, it cannot just be a campaign. It must build or strengthen a system. So when Albertsons and the gift card bank built summerebt.org, they weren't just running a campaign, they were fixing a system failure. For those of you who don't know, summerebt.org is where families go to find food benefits for the children during breaks like the holidays or summer breaks. The website was so terrible that there was very little adoption. It had very terrible UX. Families didn't know where to go. They didn't know where to put the information in. It was just awful. Albertsons saw that as a problem. They were like, well, we could benefit from this also, while also providing food to our communities. So they created a multilingual, mobile-friendly website that helps families access food benefits during school breaks. They unlocked $2.6 million in grocery support in just one summer. That meant 876,000 meals for kids during that summer. That's pretty big impact. Did they have to do that? No, they could have just easily given that money away to an organization, right? But they saw a problem, they said, we're gonna invest in this, and they made it happen. So that's what happens when brands use their resources to repair public infrastructure. Rule number 4, we have to stop counting dollars and start counting power. In this next era, success means partners and communities gain agency, not just funding. Team Rubicon and Ford is a great example of this. Their partnership is in charity, it's shared capability. They are stronger together. Together, they mobilize veterans and vehicles in disaster zones to clear roads, rebuild homes, and restore stability. The result isn't just aid, it's empowerment. Both sides walk away a bit stronger together. And rule number 5, we have to stop looking at purpose as soft. We have to see it as strategy, because it is strategy. There's a lot of data out there, amazing case studies out there of how purpose drives business strategy. The smartest companies are not treating purpose as a moral garnish. They're building it into their operating system. Let's take Mammoth Brands, formerly known as Harry's, as an example. They picked men's health when they first launched the company. Men's health was not being talked about a lot, so this was a risky move on their part. So they didn't just pick it as a marketing tool, they picked it because their target audience, which was men, is who they wanted to talk to about an issue that nobody else was talking to them about. So they built that purpose directly into their own brand, into their own decision making. So every department had to ask, how does this better the life of our consumers, of the men they were trying to reach? Their Mammoth Good model aims to reach 3.4 million people within a decade. So for them, purpose isn't a press release. That was part of it, but it's actually growth strategy. Harry's now owns 4 different companies. They're called Mammoth Brands. They're a multi-billion-dollar company now and doing really, really well. So these are the 5 rules that I think if we start following even just a few of them, we'll build an ecosystem that's much more resilient, that will survive any political pushback, any cultural change that's going to happen. So while in the old model, the incentive for corporations may have been brand reputation and possibly doing some good, the new incentive for corporations is market relevance and innovation. How can we partner with nonprofits to learn more about our communities? And how can we take that knowledge and then apply it to our businesses? For nonprofits, the old incentive was short-term grants. The new incentive is long-term equity. We want nonprofits to demand equity, to demand a seat at the table, to not be seen as a charity, but to be seen as a business partner. We want to share power. For communities, it was one-time, unpredictable aid. But in the new model, it's ongoing agency and representation, having a voice at the table. And for consumers, it felt good to purchase products that did some good. But in the new model, it's about conscious loyalty and a shared identity around purpose. So this is where Engage for Good comes in. And it's been great to see Brad build this ecosystem in Canada, because this is happening all over the world in different ways. So for 23 years, Engage for Good has been the home to corporate partnership excellence. And we do that through a lot of different ways. But when I think about the partnership economy, I think about making sure that we are supporting this ecosystem in 3 unique ways. First is we're codifying the new standards. So as I talked about the Halo Awards, all the campaigns that I talked about were winners of the Halo Awards. They are setting the new standard for what is good and what is impactful in our sector. And we're doing that every single year. We just launched the application for the Halo Awards. So if you'd like to apply, go to our website. Second is we're building spaces for shared value creation. We're building community. Through our Engage for Good conference, our local events in 7 to 10 cities in the US, our membership community of 19,000 social impact leaders, and our collective action summits. We're making sure that companies and nonprofits are sharing space together. We don't believe in silos. There are so many events that separate nonprofits from corporations. And I think it's so important for rooms like this to exist, to create that shared value, to learn from each other. And lastly, we're educating the next generation of social impact leaders. Through our robust content library, our webinars, our podcast, the guides that we release, we're making sure that tomorrow's partnership leaders, people in this room, aren't just fundraisers or marketers. They're systems designers. They're thinking about how I can bring resources to my organization that is not just dollars exchanged, but actually impact created, innovation created, knowledge learned. So when I look around this room, I don't see an industry in decline. And things are really sad down south, by the way. People are very afraid. But I'm a hopeful and optimistic person just by nature, because I see an industry and an ecosystem that's in transition. It's shedding its old skin. So this is what every great evolution looks like before it's obvious to everybody, right? It's a little messy, it's uncomfortable, it brings up a lot of fear, it's misunderstood. What's going to happen to our jobs, right? As all the work that I've done for the past 10, 15, 20 years, is that all gonna go away? And that fear is very real. But this is how movements begin. This is how evolution happens. This is how reinvention happens. It's when a few people, few leaders, like the leaders in this room, start to say, we don't have to do it the way that we've done it before. We can reflect on what we got wrong and then rebuild with what we have learned now. Imagine that a decade from now, people look back at this moment and say, this was when corporate partnerships stopped being a department and it became a discipline. What does that look like for us? This was when people in this room rewrote the rules for how business and humanity work together. So I'm asking us, I actually don't see a lot of fear in this room, so this line might not make sense to us. There's a lot of fear down south. And I've been asking people, let's turn that fear into fire. Let's make this the decade where doing good became the most precise, measurable, and impactful force in business. Because the era ahead of us isn't defined by what we've lost, it's defined by what we're about to build. And if you're wondering if I got back together with my boyfriend, I did not, but the ending of that relationship opened up a beginning of the career that I lead now, and I'm very, very thankful for that. So thank you. And if you'd like to download the Halo Awards Trends Report that has many more case studies of what makes an award-winning campaign, you can scan this QR code and hopefully join us in Palm Springs in April next year. Yeah. Yeah, let's do questions if there's one.
Great. Well, if the number of questions coming through is any indication of the impact you've made a big one, because I can't even keep up with them. So the first one is, we are not experiencing the same backlash in Canada. One, do you think we will? And if we don't, do we still need a correction to advance a new model?
I think Canada is in a very good place because you can learn from our mistakes. We've done a lot of wrong things down south. We made so much of corporate partnership work around marketing And what happens with marketing? It shifts. It has to shift every season, right? But when you build impact into business, it's very hard to take that out. So companies that are doing this really, really well have embedded purpose into their business. So those are the companies that are not retreating right now. So the ask for you all would be, what lessons can I learn from the mistakes that the US made? And then hopefully you won't go through that correction.
Thank you. Next question. Can you please speak more to the codifying standards?
Yeah. So there are there's a lot of conversation around what is good, and everybody has their own opinion, every organization has their own opinion, right? And the way that I think about codifying standards is we need to have a shared language of what good and impactful looks like. And that's not about we need to hit X number of dollars or have a partnership that runs for 5 years or 7 years. It's about thinking about how power is being shifted and shared, right? So the 5 rules that I talked about help us get there. So it's not prescriptive, right? It's more descriptive. How can we describe the work that we're doing in a way that clearly explains that we're driving impact for the business and for society?
Thank you. Let me see. Give me a second here. I'm curious how you work with work in the larger U.S. ecosystem with organizations like Points of Light or ACCP.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so there are peer organizations, ACCP, CCP, Social Innovation Summit, of course, Greater Purpose, Points of Light. There's so many organizations that are doing this great work. And what's great is that we're all collaborating in a way that's unintentional. So I was at the UN General Assembly. I happened to be in the room with the executive director of CCP and the founder of Social Innovation Summit. And the joke was the 3 of us have never been in the same room together, and that's a mistake. So we committed to actually talking more together at that meeting. But what's happening is we're all sort of talking about the same thing, which is we've got to change, we've got to learn, we've got to help our industry move forward with resilience. So while CCP focuses on senior executives, ACCP focuses on corporate leaders only. We've got Points of Light that focus on one part of social impact. Engage for Good focus on the entire ecosystem. So we like to bring the whole ecosystem together and find ways that they can collaborate and partner together.
And that's one of the things I love about social purpose is the real tendency towards collaboration and that mutually reinforcing action. So last question for you, Muneer, is owning the solution and going beyond philanthropy might be hard for companies. Any thoughts on the business case for why companies should start along this road?
Say that one more time.
I sure can. Owning the solution, so going beyond philanthropy, might be hard for companies. Any thoughts on the business case for why companies should start along this road?
Yeah, companies can learn a lot from nonprofits. And so many times I've been in conversations where companies show up to the table and say, we just want to give you money, we care about this cause, we want to do a marketing campaign, let's do it. They never ask the question, what do you know about our audience that we want to reach that we can learn from? So when I was at the Trevor Project, we did a ton of data on LGBTQ young people. So any brand that wanted to reach young people came to us, not just to partner and for charity, but came to us because they knew we had data that they did not have access to. So in every partnership, we were involved in their product development strategy, in their marketing strategy, because we knew what works with our consumers. So if you're a nonprofit in this room, you should ask yourself, what do we do that's valuable to a company that we can show up as a business partner? And if you're a brand, ask your nonprofit partners for that data, for that knowledge, for that access to communities, right? For the distribution channels. There's so much that nonprofits have that's not capitalized on when the partnership is just focused on transactional marketing campaigns.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Join me in thanking and appreciating. Amazing.